Others on the show, back again after last week. So was not here for a year, and now you're back for two in quick succession. So Adarsh, welcome. It's nice to have you back on the show.
Hello, Rohit. Thank you for having me here. I guess it's the first time we're having a live stream together. And I hope it's going to be a good one. Let's have a good discussion today.
Yes, absolutely. And what I mean, we've got a few people watching. If you are watching, please do let me know if you can see the stream because sometimes it gets a little bit weird. So yeah, do let me know if the stream is working or not. But then let's yeah, we're supposed to have Shashwat and Ninad as well, but unfortunately not able to make it, sadly, or maybe they'll join in later, but they're not here at the moment. So we'll just wait and see if they join in. At the moment, right? Let's get right into it, and let's talk about transfers because so many freaking transfers for the whole week, and we wanted this. I mean, I keep doing these reaction videos, and I keep talking about all the transfers that are happening, but I kind of wanted to get other people's sense as well. Do people think the same as me? And it'd be nice to get other folks' opinion as well. So do share your comments as well if you're watching this live. Do share your comments in the chat, and we'll try and answer any questions that you might have. We're not IDKs, just to be clear. We're not. I'm not. Adarsh, are you an IDK? I'm assuming you're not. But yeah, if you are
No,
you
no, no,
if
I'm
you're
not.
not,
I'm not.
yeah, you're not IDKs, but we can try and answer like give our thoughts and give our opinions. But you can ask us questions on why things are happening. So let's get right into it. So let's start with the two that are actually hot transfers at the moment. Let's start with Declan Rice. Others. Now Declan Rice has got had four clubs interested in. We had Bayern Munich, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Manchester United. Bayern have now pulled out of the race. So he's got technically got three clubs interested, but it's really between Arsenal and Manchester City. How do you see
Yeah.
this one playing out?
I guess when it comes to Manchester City and the force they have, the pulling force they have, that could play a very big role here with Declan Rice, because Arsenal, what I've heard and what I've seen on the news is Arsenal is trying their best. Arteta is trying his best to get the man, but at the same time, Manchester City is also there, and because of the interest, the agent and Rice both are just stalling Arsenal as of now. That's something which I can see and notice. And we all know City just won the treble, and Pep Guardiola's playing tactics and uh, him being a manager, it just plays a very crucial and a very big role at the same time when you compare it with Arteta. And Bayern, I think, is off because I don't think Bayern is going to pay that much amount of money, 100 million, 90 million for
They're
Declan
gone. They're
Rice.
no longer interested. They
And
pulled out. Yeah.
yeah, they're not interested anymore. It's just Arsenal and Manchester City. And let's see who delivers the last bid, because last I heard, Arsenal's bid also got rejected by West
Yeah.
Ham, and City haven't proposed any official bid, just the verbal agreement and just the talks. But it's only time. And when it comes to Declan, uh, he's a very good player when it comes to keeping the ball, and at the same time, he's very good at tackling the ball, something which is very similar and ideal to Rodri. And if City gets, I guess it would be very hard for Calvin Phillips to get into the team, as if it's not harder enough for him. But I also heard the news that he might also become the part of the deal. But let's see. City hasn't placed any official bid as of now, and until they place an official bid, nothing is going to be clear.
Yeah. I mean, Rice would be a signing for the following season anyway. We all know City players. The first season they just go on holiday, like they're just there like as a vacation, right? First season just get settled in. It's like you move into a new house, you settle in for a year, and then second season is when they perform. So I mean, do City need Rice? That's a question to ask. Do City need anyone? I mean, they probably don't, but they'll bring him in anyway. I suppose if they can. The question, of course, is the fee. The reported now is that it's 75 million plus 50 million pounds in add-ons, which is 90 million. I think Sam, I think I'm trying to hold out closer to 100 million pounds. What do you think is a good value for the transfer fee, in your opinion? For Rice?
Uh, West Ham has been trying to get 100 million pounds for him like since last
Yeah,
season. David Moyes was asked like if you could sell West Rice for 100 million. He said no. It was like last season, not this season. But now they haven't finished that well in the Premier League, so that is becoming the major reason for them to sell. And he is not even signing a new deal. His current deal expires in the next 2 seasons, I
yeah.
suppose.
He has got
And I
2 years.
guess 90 million is very adequate for the kind of quality, for the kind of player we're getting. Uh, because he is amazing, no doubt. He's a very good player, shining for the English team and for West Ham, like on a sole mission. And he is a captain as well for West Ham. So everything just adds on to his bonuses and everything. But I guess 90 million is something which West Ham should accept. But again, they're not accepting and waiting for Manchester City's official bid, and they would sell him to the highest bidder. So that's the game which is happening right now, a rat race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the question is, yeah, what's a good bid? I mean, Manchester United. We'll just mention this for the sake of mentioning it. They're also planning a bid. They're considering a bid. Whatever you want to call it, flirting with the bid. All those words that keep coming out. Their bid is probably going to be around £50 million plus Maguire and Scott. The last one was supposed to be McTominay and no, sorry, it's Maguire and Elanga, the last one. But there is talk that they might look at Maguire and McTominay. How do you see? I mean, do you see any chance of that being accepted? I mean, there's talk that maybe West Ham would like to have Maguire and McTominay in the side, but do you think they'll do a swap deal?
Uh, I don't think so because when it comes to Maguire, his value has been down like tremendously from 85 million to maybe 25, 30 million as of now. But because he still gets his place in the English playing 11, he is still an English player, a homegrown player. So that is the only possible reason for his value to be stayed up at 25 or 30 million. Because I don't think anybody is going to pay for the sort of player he is, like that much of amount, or because Manchester United is just trying and looking for a reason to offload him. We all know that.
Yeah.
And adding McTominay in the list is just something which United wants as well. Because McTominay, we all know, is not going to start for United anytime soon because they're eventually going to get better players. But at the same time, 50 million, I don't think so. They just want cash in hand, and that is something which Arsenal and City are going to give to them.
Well, to be fair, if you get a Scott McTominay, if that's a player you do that Moyes does want, there's a Scottish connection. If he does want McTominay and he does want Maguire, then I think a swap deal works. I just don't think Maguire is someone who would want to go to West Ham. I think he knows his brand value will stay where it is as long as he's at Manchester United. Once he leaves Man United, his brand value goes down. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that one. Of course, there's going to be some moments next week. Apparently, Arteta is really pushing for this deal. He's the one who's trying to make it happen. So, I mean, at the moment, it's between Arsenal and Manchester City, my feeling is that he'll probably go to Arsenal as long as West Ham accept the bid. If both bids are the same, then I think and West Ham accept it, they'll go to Arsenal. But I can't speak to that. Like I said, we're not ITK, so we cannot say for sure. But what do you think? Arsenal, Manchester City. I'll put it on the spot. What do you think? It's going to be Arsenal. It's going to be Manchester City. Assuming everything's the same.
Uh, I, Everything is going to be same. I think it's going to be Manchester City if again they put an official bid, and I don't think it's going to be a hard decision for Rice or his agent to choose between City and Arsenal. A treble winner and second position at their best recently. Easy decision.
Well, I mean, maybe he wants a challenge, right? Maybe he wants to go somewhere and take them to the top rather than already be at the top. Never know what players decide. But share your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think he's going to end up? Do you want Rice in your team? If you're an Arsenal fan or a City fan, do you want Declan Rice in your team? I mean,
Yeah,
that would be a
no.
question to ask as well, right?
If you ask me personally, I would say
Oh, you
no
don't want
because I
him.
do not like Rice
Oh, okay.
personally because I still don't understand the sort of a player he is. He's decent everywhere, according to me. Of course, the stats say something else. He's very good in uh, defending the team. He's very good in doing stuff. But again, when it comes to Manchester City, I would have a proper foreign player in the midfield when it comes to English player because I feel English player are not good enough tactically when it comes to playing in the midfield. Like when you see Rodri, he's smart. He knows when to be in the defensive line and everything. Again, West Ham plays very differently. David Moyes, very different manager. If he comes to City, it would be a very different challenge for Rice himself and for Pep Guardiola as well to train an English player again. But at the same time, if you see other English players, you have seen Pep Guardiola working so well with English players. John Stones using all his brain everywhere, player of the season for me. Uh, Grealish changing his game in the last season. So let's see how it
Yeah,
goes.
there's always that question mark. The English players isn't it? Isn't it? And staying with English players, we'll move on to the second one because we want to continue. And we'll talk about Mason Mount. Now that's another one that's it's a saga that's dragging on and on and on. So as what we reported was a lot of people reported, and we put it up on our channel as well yesterday, that the third bid was made for Manchester United, 50 million plus £5 million in add-ons. That was rejected because Chelsea want 57 million plus £8 million in add-ons, or maybe 58 plus 7, one of the two. That's basically the total value of the deal will be £65 million. That's what they want. Now, I've given my thoughts on this, and many of you might have seen it already, or actually not many of you, and only a few of you have seen it. You can watch it if you want. The reel is up there. Adarsh, I know you're not a United fan or a Chelsea fan, but is Mason Mount worth £65 million?
Again, such English player go on to a higher price value because of being homegrown and being English in itself, with the English quota and the homegrown quota plays a very big role for English players. And when it comes to Mason Mount, I guess uh, 50 million could have been a very good price for Mason Mount, keeping in mind the quality and his performance. I guess he just had one poor season with Chelsea, and that was the last season where he underperformed massively because, of course, there were so many things happening, so many players, so many managers, like change of ownership, and everything was happening. So I do not blame him for the change in environment or the dip in his performance because he was not the only one. But when it comes to his adequate performances and his quality and the price which Chelsea wants to match is something very, very interesting to watch. But I really want Manchester United to hold on to Mount for as long as as long it's possible, because there's no other team in the market who wants to have Mason Mount as any other team. So Chelsea desperate to offload players. They are offloading players like anything. So if United stays on and stick to 50 or 55 million, I guess they can have him, but they just need to wait and hope nobody else gets into the race.
I don't think that are desperate now to sell because they've got the money from those three deals, which we'll talk about later. So I don't, and Havertz as well. So they've got the money now from five. They actually sold five players, by the way. Five players in a week. I mean, that's got to be some kind of record. But yeah, I mean, they sold that player. So I don't think they're desperate to sell him. And I think they want to keep him anyway. I think Mason Mount is the one who's pushing to move. And I mean, I agree with you that this has got to be the final bid. If they said this is the final bid, this should be the final bid. But we all know how Manchester United work. I honestly don't think he's. I mean, I've said this many times. I don't even think he's worth 50 million. I think 30 million, 40 million. If he was in English, it would probably be like nobody would be interested in beyond 40 million. That's the
Yeah,
kind of, because he's a
absolutely.
midfielder who can't really pass well. And he's good at pressing. He scores a few goals. But he's not someone who can pass well, and he's actually his attributes are pretty average for a midfield of that in that price range for 50 55. And I think United just dragging their feet. And there's lots of things that I can talk about. I won't go into a rant of this. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I think he's basically a mid-table bench warmer. And Chelsea, because that's Chelsea were mid-table last season. Let's be honest, Chelsea were mid-table club last season, and Mason Mount warmed the bench a lot more than he played. So he's basically, and I think next season Chelsea, if he stays at Chelsea, he will not be a first choice midfielder because they've got Enzo Fernandez. They will probably bring in Moises Caicedo. They've got other players, so I don't think he'll be an automatic starter. So he's not going to be an automatic starter for a club that finished 12th last season. So how do you justify £65 million for that? I don't know. But that's what Chelsea have been doing. I think they've been very, they've been trying to fleece clubs. And I mean, I don't even. I mean, if you really want an English quota midfielder, my opinion is go and get Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa. That's a player you should be getting. If you really need an English quota player, and of course, English clubs do need English players, go and get Jacob Ramsey. I think he'd probably be the same price, and probably be better. Of course, there are other options as well that I can talk about. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Adesh, what do you think? This is going to happen. Do you think United will walk away, or do you think they'll pay the amount?
I think they are going to pay the price. They are going to pay the amount because uh, I thought
They have got money.
they were in the race for both Madison and Mount, but I can see Madison going to Spurs. That's a different transfer news, different speculation. But Mount is the only one which they are targeting as of now. That's the
Madison
only
doesn't make
player which
sense.
I can see.
Yeah, Madison doesn't make
Yeah.
sense because he's a number 10. He's an out number 10. He's
Hmm.
not number 8, right? Which is what they need, is somebody who can play alongside Casemiro. So it makes sense that they're
But
going for
again,
Mount.
I can see United getting Mount or stretching for Mount because they are not. No other player is linked with United as of now when it comes to the midfield, and that's a surprise, keeping in mind that United is such a big club and big talents and big money at the same time. Let's see.
Yeah, well, that's because of there's a lot going on at the club right now. So yeah, it's just a mess. But maybe that's a video for another time. But that's Mason Mount. Do I think the deal will happen? I want to say that no, but I know that history suggests that it will happen. And it will happen on Chelsea's terms, which is the worst thing Manchester United can do. That's just my opinion. I don't think you can share your thoughts in the chat, but I just don't think they should be doing that deal. They really shouldn't be doing that deal. But we know how United operate; they will do that deal. Anyway, do you want Mount at your club if you're a Manchester United fan? I don't, but you can share your thoughts, of course, in the comments. Yeah, I just don't see that. I just don't see how the deal can be worth anything. But right, let's move on to another midfielder. But by the way, let's talk about a few done deals now because this is interesting what actually happened because I feel this was like a domino effect that started. So basically, the first deal that went through was Mateo Kovacic completed his move to Manchester City. Now, Alish, as a Manchester City fan, what do you? We'll lead into what happened after that. But Mateo Kovacic going to Manchester City. It's a bit of a surprise that they were interested in him because his profile doesn't really quite fit what Manchester City generally look for. But what do you think of this deal? Are you happy as a considering who he's replacing? And we'll talk about him in a second. Were you happy with that sort of deal that Manchester City did? £30 million.
Let's just address the elephant in the room. He is replacing Gundogan, and those are very big shoes, very big shoes. And I personally, if you ask me, I'm not a fan of Kovacic because he offers nothing special apart from holding on to the ball. But again, if Bernardo leaves, and we know how good of a ball keeper Bernardo is, and if he leaves, I guess that would be the person, that would be the player who would be keeping the ball under heavy pressure. And Kovacic, again, is a very mediocre signing, but you never know. He can turn into a very decent or a good signing as well. But I don't mind keeping the price tag in mind. That is just 25 or 35 million. So that's a very decent price which we are paying for a Champions League winner, former Champions League winner. But I've heard good praises about the player from his national teammate Modric about how he can succeed later on, the quality he has. But let's see. Uh, Pep Guardiola is a very excellent manager. A decent player under an excellent manager could be a good player. Let's see. Again,
Yeah, I
if
mean
you
it's
ask me
interesting.
personally, I'll just a mere signing, not something impressive.
Yeah, it's not the marquee signing, isn't it, that you expect? But maybe
Yeah,
that they're saving that for somebody else, like Guardiola or Declan Rice, maybe coming in. It's
correct.
interesting that you mentioned. Actually, you know what I'm thinking? The more I think about it, is he actually a Gundogan type replacement? Because Gundogan generally plays as a number, like as the two number tens, right? In that 3-6-1, him and well, actually, it is Rod. Well, yeah, because Rodri and Stones play together in the midfield, and then you've got Gundogan and De Bruyne who play together as the number tens, and then you have Bernardo
Hmm.
Silva. I think Silva is another
Yeah.
interesting one whether he's going to stay or he's going to go. But I don't see Kovacic as a number 10. I see him more as a
No, no, no.
midfielder. So it's interesting. I mean, maybe he sees Phil Foden finally playing there, or maybe somebody else. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it is an interesting deal because it's not the kind of deal that Manchester City do. But maybe that there is something. Maybe Guardiola has seen something that I haven't, or maybe you haven't, or we haven't. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know what to expect either from that signing. But we never know with City. These days, they just seem to win league titles by default. So I don't think it matters who they sign. We'll just win the league anyway. But we'll see what happens about that one. But the elephant, as you said, Ilkay Gundogan. Moving on, that led the domino effect. Kovacic signed from Chelsea, and that means that Gundogan could then go to Barcelona, and that's a coup for Barcelona. It's got to be said. Oh, we have lost. Oh, okay, there we go. We just lost you for a second, but
Yeah.
oh, we're back now. Oops.
Sorry for
So,
that.
yeah, you're back now. Sorry about that. I think I just lost you for a second there. But yeah, Gundogan to Barcelona, that's a massive coup for Barcelona, isn't it? In many ways. And it's a big loss for Manchester City. Yeah, what are your feelings? Let's describe your
Uh,
feelings.
this is just a very bad time being a City fan when it comes
Is
to
it?
losing players. When it
Losing
comes to
players.
losing players,
Uh,
yeah, because so many players are linked to exiting the club as of now. And Gundogan is a massive name, a massive figure in the squad and the team because everybody respects him and everybody likes him. And of course, he performs on the bigger level. And when I say bigger level, I mean it because he is a clutch player. He scores goals, he brings in assists, he controls the game, he does everything, whatever the manager needs from him. Uh, Very big shoes to fill in. If Rice comes in, it would be him who would be filling Gundogan's shoes. If he doesn't, it would be Kovacic would be filling his shoes. Uh, but if you ask me personally, it's a very big loss, but it's a very good thing for Barcelona. Very good player for free. That's a good thing. And I'm sad that he couldn't agree on a contract with Manchester City because City was just offering 1 year on a fixed contract and one as an extension, whereas Barca was offering 2 year fixed contract because Barca is Barca.
Yeah,
So
of course.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean you can't always. And maybe Gundogan also felt like I've done everything that I needed to do at Manchester City. Maybe it's time for a
correct.
new challenge. I have this feeling that Pep Guardiola is trying to rebuild the squad. I think he's trying to break up the squad that's won the treble. The number of players that are being linked with exits are likely to leave. I think he's trying to basically bring in new players so he can motivate new ones to go again. He probably believes, rightly so as well, that maybe the players that are there might be unmotivated, might be mentally drained. So you try and rebuild now while you're on top and getting players who will be desperate to win as well. So maybe it's a strategy. I like the strategy. If that is a strategy,
Yeah, yeah.
I like
Like
that.
you're absolutely correct because
Yeah.
every player who is at Manchester City, an experienced player, has seen everything. They have seen winning a title on the last game. They have seen winning four domestic trophies. They have seen winning a treble. They have seen winning a title race with just a point. So they have seen everything. I don't think they have anything else to win when it comes to domestically or even when it comes to the European thing when you have completed a treble. So of course, players are looking for new challenges, new league, new teammates, everything. And Pep Guardiola is right, and you are right as well here that bringing in new players is more of a sane option as of now for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, yeah. Smash like. I mean, new Smash like for Guardiola's City Revolution or City Evolution, whatever you want to call it, and do share your thoughts, of course, on that. Do remember to smash like as well, and do subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Links in the description below. Please do that as well as we continue with our conversation here. It's very interesting because we've talked about a few done deals, and we're going to continue. Because Gundogan to Barcelona, well, there was not a domino effect, but what eventually happened as well. Another deal that Chelsea did complete is they sold Kai Havertz to Arsenal. And it was a bit of a surprise because Havertz was linked with Real Madrid. That didn't work out. He was linked with Bayern Munich. That didn't work out. And Arsenal came in and got that deal done relatively quickly, all things considered, with everything else that transpired. And here's my question for you. I'm going to be blunt and ask this question. Arsenal fans, please put in your comments in the chat as well. Did Arsenal get fleeced for the price tag? £65 million. Do you think Arsenal got fleeced? And you can be blunt because I'm going to be blunt this one. I give my verdict. But what do you think?
This
Did Arsenal get fleeced?
this is the biggest scam I have seen for a long time. Trust me. Havertz is just a useless piece of shit. Ask any Chelsea
Oh
fan.
my god. Okay, I'm
they,
gonna
they,
clip this.
they
We're
will
gonna
tell
clip
you.
this.
They will tell you because uh, apart from the title winning goal, from the Champions League winning goal, I mean, he hasn't done anything for Chelsea or even for Germany for that sake of matter. But again, what I've seen in the group, the Chelsea supporters are defending him, defending that 65 million price tag by saying, "Oh, it was multiple managers, and it's just we who were not able to get the best out of him." But the thing is, he was not that excellent even at Leverkusen, even in Bundesliga. He was not that big of a name when he joined Chelsea. But I was even surprised when Real Madrid was in the race. I guess that was the point which changed the whole game for Arteta. And he's like, "Oh, I want to get this player because Real Madrid is getting him." I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe because Havertz is a kind of player who is not a classic nine and who is not even a number 10. I don't know what kind of a player he is. He's just a shadow striker, somewhat like Nkunku, a downgraded version of Nkunku. So let's
yeah.
see.
A piece. I mean, I wouldn't be so harsh and call him a piece of shit like others did, but I do believe that Arsenal got fleeced £65 million. To your point, I think he's a player who's not got a fixed position, and maybe that's why Real Madrid were interested because they need to flesh out the squad. So they thought for £40 million, we'll get a player who can play number 10, who can play as a striker, he can play on the wings whenever we need him. He can do the like sort of like because they lost Hazard, who could do a few of those roles, and Hazard obviously sucked. So they probably thought, let's get Havertz in. Because if one Chelsea, player has sucked, why not try for another one who's also, shit. So, maybe that was the idea. So I don't know. I mean, and this is a good question though to ask because they paid £65 million for him. So you expect him to start games, right? Because I mean, he's got to start games. So where does he start? Does he start ahead of Gabriel Jesus? Does he start? He can't start ahead of Odegaard or Saka, or does he start ahead of
Yeah.
Martinelli? But I don't think he can play right wing. So the question is, where does Arteta? Where do you see him fitting in? And I'll come to the Chelsea comments in a second. I haven't forgotten about it because I've got a comment on that as well. But how do you see him fitting in the side? Because where does he actually play?
Uh,
I'm,
the
I'm
only
putting on the
thing I
spot
can
here,
see,
but
if you ask me, the only place where he can start is when Arteta do the changes. Because if you see Guardiola, every season the tactics are different. Every season he doesn't play the same tactics the very next season. So we might see a similar thing from Arteta because of course he has worked with Guardiola. He must have
Pep
learned a
Light.
thing or
I
two.
call Arteta Pep Light.
Uh,
So
Yeah. So if he does the same thing, if he gets new tactics, maybe a second striker, a shadow striker, a player behind Gabriel Jesus, he might do the trick. But again, when it comes to playing behind a striker, I still believe Odegaard is a better option.
yeah, unless you play 3-4-1-2, then you can probably play all three, but then you basically push Saka deeper, which doesn't help him. So I don't know. I have no idea. But share in the comments about how do you think Havertz will bet? How do you think Havertz will slot in? Does he play as a number eight? I don't think he can play number eight, but maybe that's the plan as well. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, squad depth is also important, so it doesn't mean that he has to start every game. And that is something there. But you pay 65. This can Arsenal as a club afford to pay 65 million pounds for a squad player? That is, of course, a conversation. As for the Chelsea fans, I know Sudan said this, and I know Nishikant said this, and all I can say is you guys are doing a very good job of saying things that are going to make Arsenal fans be happy. But the sale is already done. You can be honest now, right? Okay, yeah, we know what you actually think. Yeah, Havertz is not that. Yeah, it wasn't that Chelsea couldn't get the best out of him, and that they were just trying to make everyone believe that the sale should go through and that Arsenal actually getting good play. He's a decent player. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he knows what his best position is, and I think he needs a manager who's going to figure out what his best position actually is. And that's maybe it's too late for him. Maybe there's still time. I
Even
don't
the
know.
player doesn't know what's his best position. How can a manager tell him that it's his best
Well, I
position?
mean, sometimes players think that they know, right? Sometimes players think, well, I'm a good striker or that I'm a good winger, but actually they're not, right? There's something else, right? So I feel like I think in his mind, he probably thinks that he's something, but he's probably not. And he's been proven that he's not in that role. So now he's got to also
That's
figure out, well,
that
do
sounds
I
like
know where I
Maguire.
play, right? Yeah, I mean,
That
like Joe
sounds like
Linton.
Maguire.
Yeah, like Joe Linton thought he was a
True.
striker for a long time. Then he finally realized, well, I'm actually a
Yeah.
midfielder. I'm not a striker. And then he became better. So sometimes
Yeah.
you just don't know where. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like maybe
Arsenal
there's some.
fans are hoping your words are very true to
Fine.
them.
I hope so. Well, I try to be positive. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I try to be positive for every player, at least at the start. We later see what happens. But yeah, I mean, that is an interesting one to keep an eye on. We'll keep rolling, of course. And I think we'll talk about one last thing from Chelsea and then we'll kind of move on from this because it was Chelsea's week, actually. It wasn't in many ways. Five transfers in 1 week. I think it's unheard of. I mean, Manchester United can do five transfers. As a United fan, I know Manchester United can't even do five transfers in a month in a transfer window. So to be able to do five transfers in a day, in a week is just incredible. But three deals to Saudi Arabia. Now that's drawn a lot of controversy, and I've spoken about it, of course, the fact that they've got Koulibaly, Ziyech, and Mendy over to Saudi Arabia, and obviously there's a whole conversation to be had about what Saudi Arabia is doing in this transfer window. But first of all, how good is it for Chelsea to be able to get rid of three players that they didn't want to keep? They've got decent money for them. They've got their wages off the books, and been able to do a deal with Saudi Arabia. That's beneficial advantages to Chelsea, isn't it, in terms of FFP and all those things.
Uh, I guess it's a very good thing what they're doing. And I also read somewhere, I heard somewhere that Chelsea owner Todd had a deal with some Saudi teams or the Saudi league where they could exchange the players or sell their players. I'm not sure how true is that,
I
but
think, yeah.
seeing and watching these transfers go like water seems like that news could be true. That rumor
I
could
didn't
be
know that
true that they
either.
just had a
So
deal.
what I know is
Yeah,
that Saudi has an investment stake. The PIF, Public Investment Fund, has a minority stake in Clear Lake, which is the majority investor in Blueco, which owns Chelsea. So it's like a very convoluted kind of link. Obviously, it
yeah,
means that I don't think it's unethical in the sense of Saudi going, "Man, I will take 50 million pounds here, you go and put it on the books or whatever." I think it's more a case of, well, they had connections and they decided to use them to offload some players, which is and you can I can say it's
which is a very
unethical.
smart move.
Yeah, it's smart. It's
I guess
unethical, but it's not illegal.
it's
It's not.
very
It's nothing
smart.
wrong with
If
it, right?
everything is going on in the books, I guess it's a very smart move to
Yeah,
offload players. I guess that is something which City has been doing for a very long time when it
yeah.
comes to giving
Transfer.
out players on loans,
Yeah.
not selling but loans, buying players, training them in a City group team, and see how the player develops, and then decides whether to give a proper contract or not. They are doing in a very financial way, Chelsea, and that's a very smart move for
Yeah.
fans and for the club.
Yeah, definitely very smart. I think it's fantastic that they've been able to do that. And then it brings to the question of Saudi Arabia. I mean, so many players signed. Obviously, Ruben Neves has also gone in. I've mentioned 2 3 players. They've got. I'm sure that yeah, I mean, they were interested in Bernardo Silva, then Riyad Mahrez and Romelu Lukaku. Of course, those guys didn't move. And Golo Kante has moved as well on a free transfer. So they really and they're trying to push for Wilfred Zaha as well apparently. So a lot of players moving there and being interested in moving there. Do you see Saudi Arabia as a player in the football world? Maybe in a year, 2 years, do you see that happening?
No, so because as far as what I have had a discussion with around this game is when you plan to have a proper league, when you want the league to upscale itself, it starts from the bottom. But if you try to get players, big names, or maybe players who can attract audience, of course, who are uh, having the age group of 30 or above, 28 or above, at least. Of course, you can get on game or two, but watching other teammates whom they don't even know the names, they can't even pronounce, the match referees and everything, I don't think it's going to be that big of an impact. Getting 35, 36-year-old Benzema, so many players like who doesn't offer anything. Ruben Neves doesn't have that big of a following. If you are even considering him a move under 28, he's 26, 25, 27, somewhat like that, but he doesn't have that following. He's just going there for money. We all know, just like Oscar did to China. Similar thing happened. Chinese league, Chinese Super League. Something went wrong. Nobody goes there now. Nobody buys there from there. So maybe something that can happen. But again, if something out of the blue happens in Saudi Arabia, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a risk. I do disagree on the academy part. I think I know UEFA mentioned this that you've got to build from the bottom. I feel that's actually you've got to build on both sides. Like you've got to get people that are well known. You've got to get your Benzemas, you've got to get your Ronaldos because that's what sparks interest, right? Then people start going to the games. And at the same time, there will be people, little kids who might be interested in taking up football because they watch those guys, right? Because nobody, no disrespect, but nobody is going to go to a Saudi League game if it's just Saudi players or unknown African players. Nobody's going to watch them, so nobody's getting interested in playing. But when you see Ronaldo playing, you go, oh, you know what? Maybe I want to play football, and then maybe 100 kids play. Maybe 10 kids out of those might want to go into an academy. Maybe two come through. So you've got to go that way. Obviously, there are demographic issues with Saudi Arabia, which I don't want to get into. But that do limit how much potential there is in terms of building academies and things like that. Different countries have different lifestyles and all that stuff. So there's obviously those issues as well to consider. So it is a bit difficult. But I think what Saudi Arabia here, the aim for Saudi Arabia is not to build football in Saudi Arabia. They're not trying to build football. They're basically trying to get a league that is well marketable, that they can generate some sort of revenue from, but really most importantly generate goodwill and create a buzz for Saudi Arabia to get the World Cup. That is the goal, right? The same as Qatar did when they got PSG. The goal was to get the 2022 World Cup. The positive PR that they could. I think this is a positive PR move. So when you look at it from that perspective, the way that they're going is probably the right way. The question is it sustainable? And others is right. It's not sustainable. It's not going to last long term. And long term, if they want sustainability, they will need to go into get developing academies, getting young players through, getting kids excited about football, and hopefully building that. Is that the goal? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if others knows the answer to that. But that is just something that we have to wait and watch, and we'll see. But maybe it will. Maybe it will be nice. But we'll see what happens with that. But definitely, I think at least for the next 2 years, 3 years, I see them as a major player in the transfer market. I see that as something where clubs might be going right. Yeah, agents might be going. Yeah, we could go to Saudi Arabia. My player could go to Saudi Arabia. That Saudi Arabia might be willing to pay big transfer fees for players that they want, and that might distort the market. That's my opinion. Share your thoughts, of course, in the chat, and Yeah, we'll continue, but yeah, I want to keep an eye on, of course, for the rest of this because I don't think we've heard the last of Saudi Arabia, for sure. And I will just wrap up just a couple more to talk about Sandro Tonali, one of the most surprising deals that happened to Newcastle United. Now, there's some reports that come out that he didn't want to go to the club and he was crying and all that. I'm gonna take that
Yeah,
with a pinch of salt for the moment. I know there's some credible journalists, but it's always very difficult when somebody goes and say he was crying when he was told he had to move because you were not in the room when that happened. So it's like someone told someone something, right? But anyway, Sandro Tonali Newcastle, 70 million euros. I think it's a fantastic deal for Newcastle. What do you think?
I guess it's terrific deal because Tonali is a very good player. Because I don't think it was very late when he joined AC Milan. Earlier, he was a Roma
90.
player. No,
He was with Brescia.
Brescia. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. He recently joined AC Milan 1 year ago, 1 season ago,
No,
if I'm
no, it's
not
been
wrong.
3, 4 years. No, it's been 3, 4 years.
3, 4 years. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Then
It's
it's
been a while.
completely my bad.
Yeah,
But Tonali is a very, very stable player, a very young prospect who was very admired in Italy. But again, the news was, like you said, the AC Milan hierarchy wanted him out because of some XYZ reason.
FFP,
But
financial
yeah,
reasons.
so
Yeah,
I don't know what will happen next, but he just signed a contract in 2021, if I'm not wrong, and he had his contract a very long contract for 5 or 6 years. But now that he's been sold and he's just 23 years old,
yeah,
Newcastle wanted a young player who wanted a young midfielder who can run, who can defend, who can even go forward. He's a box-to-box player and fits in a very good profile, who can just play along Bruno. So
yeah,
let's see.
yeah.
Even Joe Linton will have a good competition now, like you said, a good player now.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe.
Yeah, and he can also play the Bruno role because we saw it in the season when Bruno
Yeah,
was
yeah,
absent, Newcastle completely disintegrated. Like they were not the same team. So maybe even when Bruno's
yeah.
not available, they've got Sandro who can play that role. They can play together, or Sandro can play on his own. So it's a good squad. Maybe Newcastle are going for the title. Others, maybe they are.
No, no.
You know what? I think it depends on the business, but they're also looking at bringing in Dominic Soboslai, which is what we're hearing now. They're looking at James Madison, so they're trying to improve that midfield.
Who is their
What a
manager?
difference!
Eddie. Tell
Sorry,
me his nationality.
who?
Who is the manager of Newcastle? Eddie. Tell me his nationality.
That's the thing, right? English, English
When was the last time an English manager won a silverware?
silverware, or you mean the league
Apart
title?
the league title, the league title.
That was in no English manager has ever won the Premier League. The last one was in 1992. I know that. That was with
Yeah.
Leeds United. I think it was Ron Atkinson, if I'm not
Yep. The
mistaken.
only English manager who was very close to the league title was Brendan Rodgers, if I'm not wrong. That was
Well, Kevin Keegan.
2015,
Kevin Keegan finished second with Newcastle.
2015, 16,
Yeah, that was Brendan. Yeah,
2015,
well,
16.
that was 20. No,
The last
2013,
one.
14. 2013, 14.
2013, 14? Yeah, that was
Yeah,
Brendan
Brendan,
Rodgers
right?
the last time.
Brendan is English, right? Like I always keep getting confused. Is he English or is
He's
he like
English.
not
He's English.
English? Right? Yeah. Sometimes I think he's
English, yeah.
Northern Irish or something, but no, he's English, I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that was the closest, right?
So
Before that was Kevin Keegan.
if
So those were the
if
two.
Eddie had a good season, do not get into the whole mirage of his. Trust me, he's English. He'll bottle this season or next season. The moment everybody expects the best out of him, he'll bottle.
Oh my God, Aditya's cynicism right here. Oh God. Okay. Well, you know what? I have hopes for Newcastle. I mean, I think at a club that will get close to Manchester City, the only club that is going to get anywhere close to Manchester City in the next 3 years is going to be Newcastle consistently. I mean, I see Liverpool challenging next season. We'll talk about season later, but I see Liverpool challenging. I see Arsenal challenging. But I think consistently over the next 3, 4 years, I think it will be Newcastle will be there or thereabouts close to Manchester City. And they are probably the only club that are equipped to actually challenge Manchester City at the moment, financially and sportingly. But we'll see what happens. Maybe Eddie Howe will buck the trend, but it's a fantastic signing. Sandro Tonali is a massive signing. It's a good signing for Newcastle. It's a signing that, in a way, it's a legitimizing signing, isn't it? Because then you bring in a proper world, like a player who's highly rated and highly regarded, and you bring him in, and he comes to your club. That's really, really awesome for the club. But we'll see how that goes, of course, and what happens with him. But yeah, it's a massive loss to AC Milan as well. The only thing about Sandro Tonali, which I will say, is that he's been on the fringe of being a great player for a long time, yet he never gets to that level. For some reason, he's never gotten to that level. He wasn't part. I was actually surprised he was not part of the Italy squad. Which won Euro 2022 or yeah, Euro 2021. Actually, Euro 2021. He wasn't part of that squad, which is surprising considering how regularly he starts for AC Milan. So there is something there. And he's actually captain of the Italy under 23 squad, so he's got a bit of an emotion as well. So yeah, there's things there that I think are still not right with him. So
Hmm.
maybe this is the move he needs to put it all together. Italian players have not had the best of history in or Serie A players have not had the best of history in converting to the Premier League. So there's that as well. But yeah, it's a
Hmm.
wonderful signing on paper, and we'll see what happens. We'll conclude, I think, with one final one. We'll talk about David De Gea, the goalkeeper situation at Manchester United. So David De Gea may or may not leave Manchester United. We are a week away. We still don't know if he's going to leave. He may or may not leave. But there was a contract. There's a lot of uncertainty. So there was a contract offer on the table. It was supposed to be signed, but then it was withdrawn at the last moment. This is what some people say, that United withdrew it at the last moment, and now they're looking at another goalkeeper. Some others say, well, that David De Gea did not sign the contract because there was interest from Saudi Arabia, who were going to match his salary or beat it. So, Rajesh, where do you stand on this? Do you think? And I mean, I know your views on David De Gea, so I can't know where you're going with this. But if you're Manchester United, do you offer do you keep the contract for David De Gea, or if you're David De Gea, do you sign the contract or do you move on? What do you do? That's two
Uh,
questions really.
when it comes to United, I guess they shouldn't be offering him a first choice goalkeeping position to him anymore. But at the same time, if you ask me the second question, being De Gea, he is still 31, 32, if I'm not wrong, 32.
Yeah, I guess so.
So
Yeah.
he still has good years left in him when it comes to being a goalkeeper. So he can still try on new challenges, new places where you do not have this much pressure with the ball, because United tactics are completely different now, completely different to what they were. Of course, he won the Golden Glove last season, but we all know how he won it and what are the mistakes he has done. So that is something which he should think about, because if he continues somehow, it's going to impact his form and mental health at the same time. Because of course, committing mistakes over and over again just harms you. Just look at Maguire. He lost his confidence, and it's getting very hard for him to regain all his confidence and trust from both the manager and fans. Similar thing might happen for De Gea, but it is a very adequate and a right time for him to move away from the club and leave the history behind of whatever he's achieved and done for the club so far. He's a very good shot stopper, but at the same time, he's quite opposite when it comes to playing with the ball. So, and if United gets players like Onana, who's very much linked with United, things could be very well sorted, because an excellent goalkeeper. If you have heard that interview from Pep Guardiola before the finals, he said they just play with uh, 11 men in the midfield. Onana is that good. So let's
Yeah,
see.
I never listened to Guardiola. He talks a lot of rubbish before the games. Like he just talks. That's just him. Like he always, oh, this manager is the greatest manager in the world, and he spanks them 7-0, and it's like, yeah. So yeah, I don't pay much attention to what Guardiola says before matches. Yeah, it's just yeah. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But I like your point about David here. My thing with him is he's never going to play for Spain again. Like that's pretty much obvious. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very unlikely that he's ever going to play for Spain again. So his international career is now over. I obviously, like you said, he shouldn't be number one for Manchester United, and I agree with that. I actually don't think he's a very good shot stopper. I think it's a bit overrated, that part of him. I think he freezes on the big occasions, and so then he lets in goals like the ones that he did against Manchester City and Sevilla. So he does that. Those are aspects to his game. I don't think and yet you've said this quite often. He's not the same player that he was after that 2018 World Cup
Yeah.
against Portugal.
Yeah.
I think it shattered his confidence quite a bit. But yeah, I think he's just someone who freezes. So he shouldn't be number one. Will he accept being number two? Probably not. Especially being number two on reduced wages, probably not. So this is the time probably for him
Yeah.
now to look. Okay, what's left in my career? Am I gonna do I stay at Manchester United, try to win maybe a trophies as a bench player, or do I just go to Saudi Arabia where I can earn a lot of money? I can play at a decent level for 3-4 years. Maximize my income and move on, because I'm never playing for Spain again, right? The only reason you would want to stay in Europe is because you want to be in contention for Spain, but he's never going to be in contention for Spain no matter where he goes. So I mean, that for me, if I was David, I would do the Saudi Arabia deal, because you get the money. It's one career. You're a legend of Manchester United now. He is going to be a legend of Manchester United. There's no doubt about that. A fantastic goalkeeper that he's been, but there's nothing beyond that. And so now it's time to probably get those big bucks and move on. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, feel free to share yours, of course, in the chat, and love to hear from you. But Andre Onana, you touched on him, Adesh. 50 million euros plus add-ons. That's what Inter Milan are asking for. The other
Yeah.
alternative is Diogo Costa from Porto and David Raya from Brentford. Of the three, who's your pick if you had to pick one?
Onana, a
Okay.
clear Onana, because
Yeah.
he has played under Ten Hag at Ajax,
Yeah.
and he is very well aware of the system. And I have seen him play with the feet, with the ball. He's very confident, very good with the ball, and I guess that is the direction Ten Hag wants to move when it comes to this position, when it comes to having a goalkeeper. And they should not hesitate giving 50 millions for a goalkeeper because it's something which is very normal. That price tag in this market, like, see, you're giving 50 and 60 millions for Mason Mount, and he is probably not that good of a player. But when you compare it with Onana, he's a very, very good player. He just uh, played a final with Inter Milan, and Inter Milan had a brilliant keeper in Handanovic, and he had some very big shoes to fill in Onana, and he did a very good job. So if they are selling him within just 2 seasons, that means he is attracting attention, and United is the club who is ready to give the money, and they should give the money, if you ask me.
Yeah, and skinned, so you could get a good deal out of that because they don't need to raise money. Yeah, 45 million pounds because it's 50 million euros. So 45 million pounds plus maybe another 10 in add-ons or 15 in add-ons. I think that's a deal worth doing. I honestly think that's a deal worth doing for him. But again, we don't know what United are going to do because there's all sorts of issues with the takeover and the Glazers, and so don't know where that's going to happen. But and if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, that's up in the air. But hopefully it does happen. I think yeah, my choice would be Onana too, and because I think yeah, and Costa didn't impress at the World Cup, so the question is there whether he's got that mentality. Ray obviously someone who has some deficiencies in his game, so it'll be interesting though to keep an eye on. But I hope they do get the deal for another line. Chelsea was said to be interested, but I think now Pochettino wants to work with Kepa as his number one. So I mean, I don't know why he thinks that that's going to work, but and you're shaking your head, I'm shaking my head too, but I don't know if that's going to work.
Chelsea is a different case.
Yeah, and it's a weird one. But maybe they feel that there's something to work with, or maybe they want to give him a year and then look for somebody else next year. But it's a risky game, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll stop here. I think we've covered quite a few. I know we couldn't cover every transfer. I know there's lots of rumors about Julian Timber, about Mohamed Kudus. It's difficult to cover everything, and it would be nice to have some other the other folks who are supposed to be here. It'd be nice to get their thoughts on that. But unfortunately, they're not. So we'll stop here. Thank you everyone who's watching. We had a total of 17 people watching, which is quite a nice number considering how many views we normally get. And hopefully more people will watch in the future. But if you did enjoy it, do smash a like and do let us know in the comments that you enjoyed this. So we'll do more of this. We'll try to do one of these a week if we can to just kind of round up everything and get other people's opinions. Because I like doing the reels, but I also like talking to other people and kind of getting their sense as to what they give. So thank you so much, Adarsh, for being here. For you always it's always a pleasure to chat with you. It's always a pleasure to get your thoughts and opinions on things. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me, Rohit. It was
Yeah.
lovely talking to you regarding football and transfers. See you soon then.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you enjoy others, do smash a like for his presence and for his comments. And do subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We always appreciate your support, as I mentioned. And, if you subscribe, you get notified whenever you go live because we might do a few more of these going forward. So please do subscribe to get notified. Thank you so much for watching. You all